Hello folks and welcome back to my channel. A couple months ago I did a video comparing different types of single flare plugs because stretching is the topic I can never stop talking about and I have lots of opinions to the surprise of no one. And I've been overwhelmed by how positive the response to that video has been and how many of you have reached out to me and messaged me and been like, wow, this was so helpful to my stretching journey. I had never even considered the style of single flare plugs like this. Like, this has really changed my stretching process. So I had to make a follow-up video to that because I am also very strongly opinionated about types of O-rings. And this is one of the most subtle but frequent and kind of insidious mistakes I see people make when stretching, and I see it cause some of the worst outcomes. So let's talk about it, different types of O-rings, why it matters, and what you need to know. So O-rings are the little silicone bands that hold single flare plugs in place in your ears. If you are stretching anything that involves wearing O-rings, you know they are both your best friend for keeping your plugs in and your worst nightmare for being the easiest thing in the world to lose. I still am randomly finding like 5/8 of an inch O-rings in my stuff 4 homes and 6 years since I've last been 5/8. It is crazy the way O-rings just love to disappear with left socks and Tupperware lids. But what you might not know about O-rings is that they could be what's slowing down your stretching process, and they could even be damaging your ears. Now, O-rings primarily come in 2 different materials. There's nitrile O-rings and silicone O-rings. Back in the day, it was very easy to tell the difference apart because just about every black O-ring you could get on the market was nitrile. And if the O-rings were clear or some kind of color, they were silicone. These days, it's a little bit trickier because they make silicone O-rings for stretching in lots of different colors, including black. But as a rule of thumb, if you're not explicitly sure what material your O-rings are, if they're black, assume that they're nitrile. And this assumption is important to make because a lot of people have negative reactions to the nitrile O-rings. Whether it's a sensitivity to the nitrile itself or whether it's other components that are in the plastic and in the material, I see a ton of folks tell me that seemingly everything was fine and their ears were totally normal, and they woke up one morning with sore, weeping, irritated, bloody, just grumpy, angry ears. And they're like, I don't know what is going on or what is causing this. This has seemingly come out of nowhere. And 9 times out of 10, if there's not some other cause, they were wearing nitrile O-rings and their body just finally went, nope, I've had enough of it. I am over being in contact with this material. Now, the silicone O-rings are much more hypoallergenic. I have only once in my career seen someone have a reaction to silicone O-rings, and I've been doing this for almost 13 years. In comparison, I see reactions to nitrile O-rings like a couple of times a month between clients I see in person and like people who I help online. It's not impossible to have a reaction to silicone O-rings, but it's very, very, very rare, and silicone O-rings are going to be safe for most folks to wear. Now, what is so insidious about nitrile O-rings is that it's a sensitivity, not an allergy. So this is a sensitivity that can become worse through exposure. I wore nitrile O-rings because that's what was around and what was cheap. I mean, back in the day, like before I was working in the industry, I didn't know any better. I was getting like stretching kits from Body Art Forms, and they would always give you a bunch of free nitrile O-rings, and I was like, great, this is perfect. And I wore them just fine on my own ears for a very long time. Then I started stretching my tongue, and I was wearing O-rings on single flare jewelry that I was getting for my tongue, and I woke up one morning with my tongue super swollen, super raw, super in pain on the bottom, and I didn't really understand what was going on, and the next day my ears started to act up too. And after years and years of wearing nitrile and exposing my body to it in that way 24/7, my body was done with it, and all of my stuff was flaring up. Swapped it to silicone, immediately better. I have watched this fix work a million times in person. Client comes in, super irritated, angry ears, nitrile O-rings, we swap them for silicone, immediately better. And sometimes it's a very subtle struggle. I have clients come in who will say, oh, I've been at like a 2 gauge for over a year and I cannot get a 1 gauge in. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I've given it time. I massage my ears. I take care of my ears. They're wearing nitrile O-rings. We swap them to silicone. 2-3 months later, those 1 gauges are sliding in with no problem. So it's not always a full-blown reaction to the nitrile O-rings. Sometimes it's just as subtle as your ears seemingly never being ready to stretch, or taking an egregiously long time to be ready to stretch, or just always being a little tender or a little funky. All of those can be ways a sensitivity to nitrile can present themselves with stretched ears. Because of this, I don't suggest anyone wear nitrile O-rings. I get that they're cheaper and they're a little bit more accessible than silicone O-rings for a lot of folks, but I just see them cause issues so frequently, and it can be so hard. Again, if it's just like, are my ears just being slow to stretch? Are they irritated from the cold or from being sick or for something else? Is it my O-rings? It can be really hard to determine what's slowing down your stretching process or complicating your stretching process. So why add another variable that can make it even harder? So I personally suggest wearing only silicone O-rings when you're stretching and on stretched piercings. I think they're a lot safer. I think they're a lot more hypoallergenic, and I see significantly less issues with silicone O-rings. And if you're sitting at home and thinking, wow, that kind of sounds like me, I've always struggled with stretching, my ears have just always never quite been happy, like even with buying good stuff and even with taking care of my lobes, check out those O-rings. Now, most quality companies these days have swapped to silicone only O-rings because of these issues. Like Glassware Studios stopped using nitrile like over a decade ago because they were like, we've seen too many people have a bad reaction to the nitrile. We've seen too many negative responses. So in general, if you're getting stuff from quality companies, you're probably getting silicone. But you know, O-rings are easy to lose. You run to your nearest studio to get a replacement. You order some quick replacements off the internet. Make sure you're getting silicone. Make sure you're getting them from a safe, trusted vendor that you know is going to send you silicone, not nitrile. And when in doubt, assume any black O-rings, unless 100% verified, are nitrile, and try and stick with clear O-rings to be on the safe side if you're looking for silicone. But that's a little breakdown about O-rings for those at home who may not have known about this. I think it's fascinating how much these tiny little factors, like the shape of a single flare plug and the material of an O-ring, can have such an instrumental effect on someone's stretching process and how easily they're able to go up sizes. But all these little factors really do make a huge difference. So please take care of your ears, make sure you're using the right stuff. I'm sure we'll sit down and chat again soon. And if anyone wants to see me talk about any other very niche topics related to ear stretching, like my favorite type of O-ring, let me know down in the comments below. It's becoming amusing to me how we just never run out of stretching stuff to talk about on this channel. So I guess we'll just keep talking about it. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'm sure we'll sit down and chat again soon. Bye.